He's a former USC quarterback, also played at Pitt. It is Max Browne, now with the Trojans Radio Network. You can also hear him on SiriusXM, his Twitter, Max Browne 4. Most importantly, though, subscribe to his YouTube channel because he breaks down football better than anyone. Max Browne, type in the name with an E at the end of Brown, and you will love it. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Max, love your insight in the sport, and it's been fascinating to see your journey post-football and how you're channeling it into analysis. How did that start, you beginning that YouTube channel? Because since then, people have taken notice and opportunities have come your way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm starting with YouTube definitely kind of sparked my broadcasting career, I guess you could say. But I'll throw it back to even a few years before that. So I started the YouTube channel in 2018, but in I'd say probably 14 or 15, when I was backing up Cody Kessler at USC, and on Friday practices, for those that kind of know how football works, the backup quarterback doesn't usually get any reps. It's kind of a final walkthrough before the Saturday games. And I don't know how it started, but one of the random Fridays, I just started like announcing the 2-minute drill walkthrough that would go on in the USC practice field with, Cody Kessler, Nelson Aguilar, Juju Smith-Schuster, Ronald Jones, all names that football fans know 6 years later, I guess. But it was something that was just kind of like fun and quirky, I guess you could say. It was me and a graduate assistant that would just kind of joke around, color commentate, play-by-play things a little bit. And that was kind of the first moment that I realized, hey, I think when football's done for me, I want to give broadcasting a shot. And obviously there's a long step between that and making a YouTube channel, and then that and calling a game in Ruston, Louisiana Tech this past fall. But that's honestly kind of where it started. And I always knew that I wanted football to be kind of part of my life. And for where I'm at right now and where I was at 5 years ago, the coaching world, that lifestyle is too gnarly for me. And so kind of more the media route is where my heart's at.
If you were to fill the blank here, football's relationship with you has been
up and down. And that's the first time I've been asked like that. I need to come up with a more punchy one word answer. But yeah, and that's a big part of my story. You mentioned kind of my breakdowns and whatnot. And then on other social platforms, I definitely talk about my story, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's up and down. The way I tell people is at 17, I was living the dream of every athletic kid at 5 years old. I was the number one quarterback in the country, could have gone to any school and played football anywhere I wanted, which was an absolute blessing and something I was super fortunate to have. But then 6 years later at 23, there's articles going out there that are saying I'm the biggest bust of the 2010s in that decade. And so it's kind of, the climb was awesome and it was great, but it didn't come without some hardship falls there a little bit when you don't kind of live up to expectations, I guess you could say. So football will forever be a huge part of who I am, what I am. And I love the game, always will. But the true honesty is at 25, I'm about to turn 26. It's not a sun is always shining type relationship with the game kind of thing.
I feel like in a way, though, with what you're doing as a broadcaster and doing the analysis, you're sort of helping redeem yourself. Maybe what you didn't think or what didn't happen on the football field as much as you wish it could. This is your way of channeling your energies in the sport and being successful in another avenue of football. How much burden is there in being the number one overall recruit and trying to live up to that? I can't even imagine just the pressure that anybody has to go through in that situation.
Yeah, I think for me, I always start by saying, hey, it was an absolute blessing to be in that position. I would never want it any different. The result of getting that kind of ranking is a result of a lot of success in high school with some of my best childhood friends, and would never switch that in a million years. But I think that is something, the burden aspect, that's something that I think a lot of people overlook, right? It seems like it's always a luxury. And in high school, you're on ESPN recruiting specials and everyone kind of knows your name. And that part's sweet. My high school team played on ESPN a couple times. Like, that stuff's awesome. But the downside is, the second I stepped on campus at USC. I mean, the clock was ticking, and you might say that happens for every guy, but I would push back and say it's different for the guys that were the 5-star guys, the guys that were supposed to, I mean, kind of, I came in thinking I was going to bring the program back. And the second that I got onto campus, when I was losing competition battles there, like, it's not this college is the best thing ever, and it's what a time and all that. Like, no, it's time to go. And when things weren't working out, that becomes really hard, especially when it's pivotal years of you growing as a man, as a person. That can be a lot to handle, and it really was. I mean, especially mentally. And I think the harsh reality is, I mean, I'm doing well. I got some things working for me. My life at 26 is still, I got a lot of things to be thankful for. But if you look back at some of my teammates, some of my guys that were my equivalents that also things didn't work out for, their lives aren't in the best situations. And that's that's not a fun road to go down, but it's a road that's very real. And you look at the Derrick Henrys and the Alvin Kamaras and Jared Goffs and guys that were of my kind of recruiting status a little bit. Those stories are fun, but there's also guys that you go down the list and it's not so much the case. And I think it's a big, the why behind that is a lot of those recruiting pressures guys can't handle when things don't work out necessarily.
Max, what do you know now that you wish you knew then as USC's quarterback?
When I look back on my career, I've always been a guy since for better or for worse, when I was like 12 years old, I've always kind of been thinking ahead and like what's going to happen 5 years down the road. So I don't have like huge regrets. And I don't mean to be like Mr. Perfect or anything, but I just look back on my story, and at every step of the way, I felt like I kind of invested some good things. But I do look back in my career, and I was a guy that took things super seriously. And I was not that I was like a Mr. Stiffy or anything and that kind of thing, but I was a guy that was intense. And I mean, I remember guys telling me, hey, treat every practice like the Super Bowl kind of thing. And hey, every practice, treat it like a game. You never know. You could win a job on this practice. And I really internalized that mindset. And I look back on 18, 19, 20-year-old Max Browne, and I think it got to a point where that mindset to me wasn't necessarily healthy. And it's a weird double standard, because that mindset will bring success in my life. It brought me success in my life in high school, but I do look back and I think it prevented some of the enjoyment at times. I think at times I put a lot of pressure on myself as a result of having that mindset. And just looking around a locker room, the reality is most guys aren't wired that way. And it is kind of a little bit more kind of carefree, fun, I'm a college football player at USC type thing, which is awesome. And I think I look back on my career, and that's something I definitely try to take with me in this phase of life, is not trying to make things bigger than they are, and kind of more trusting that things are going to lay out the way they're going to. And I just look back on the young adult Max Browne. He was really intense, and I don't know if that was always healthy for me.
While there weren't as many opportunities as you wish, and that I know that you should have had as a college quarterback, when was a play or when was a game or a sequence, a drive where you felt most, and this is over your college career, where you felt most like, this is the quarterback I've been trying to show everybody all through college. This is just a little flash of who that person really is?
Yeah, it's got to be the Rice game late or in my redshirt senior year. It was the last full game I played before I ripped up my shoulder the week after. It was the week I was ACC Offensive Player of the Year. I went like 28 for 30, 4 touchdowns. And it was one of those things where after the game, it was exactly like you draw it up. It was like a perfect practice against the scout team type thing. And I remember after the game, reporters would kind of ask me questions like, how does this, is this, where did this come from? Or narratives like that. And I remember sitting there like, guys, I don't mean to be that guy, but like, we've been doing this. I've been doing this on practice fields at Howard Cromwell at USC. I've been doing this on Pittsburgh, inside the UPMC dome there. This is nothing new. I know I had former teammates and coaches kind of watching that game, kind of like, yep, all right, Brownie did his thing kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily like, I mean, I guess, yes, it was a breakout game, but I think you can kind of sense what I'm getting at with that. And it was more of just kind of a sigh of relief type thing. And it's too bad I didn't get to show that more often and in a larger capacity. But that was the game where I remember walking off the field, just kind of like, finally, man, like there's a reason I was able to beat out a Sam Darnold at USC. There was a reason I was able to beat out a Ben DiNucci who just started for the Cowboys. Like this wasn't something they're just giving out starting jobs at these schools. And that Rice game in 2017 was where it felt like it kind of the world got to see it a little bit there.
After Pitt, you flirted with the opportunity because you had some tape now to try and give it a shot professionally. Is that something that's still out there, or was it at the time something you felt that you could do? And what was that time in your life like, just finishing up college and then deciding on, hey, what do I do next? I've had some good games. Do I try to go the pro level? Do I try to go like you did and are doing the analysis YouTube channel and getting into radio and such?
Yeah, so I feel like I always felt internally like I owed it to myself to at least give it a run.
Sure.
My story is a little unique in that, so I mentioned the injury right there. So I ripped up my right shoulder on October 7th, and so I tore my labrum, and that was the labrum in my right shoulder. So as a quarterback, I mean that's pretty tough. And so my professional pursuit was 15 months long. So I went to a training facility. I hired an agent. I kind of did the process that most people would do. The only difference was I couldn't throw to full capacity. And looking back, they kind of told me, oh, you'll be thrown in 4 months. And I was training to try to have a pro day in March after an October surgery. And I was optimistic that could happen. Looking back, that was absolutely crazy. There was no way that was ever going to happen. But I tried to do a makeshift pro day and do some routes to try to show some NFL teams that I was getting healthy. I got invited to 5 rookie mini camps, but I couldn't do anything because I couldn't throw. And so, long story short, I was rehabbing basically the entire year of 2018 and Christmas time, right before on December 23rd of 2018. So yeah, 15 months after the injury, I kind of realized, hey, it was now or never for kind of where my shoulder was at, and had a tryout with the Redskins in DC and the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and walked away from that tryout saying, I mean, I can throw a football, but it wasn't at the level I once was. And keep a long story short, just kind of felt like I had nothing left in the tank. And that's a topic I get asked on about a lot. I think it's different for every single guy. For me, it just felt like it was time to move forward, and ended up taking a job in February of 2019. So it was about a 15, 16 months professional pursuit, and had some opportunities there, was battling injury, and ultimately just didn't get it done. And it's a tough decision. It really was. I mean, I remember calling my dad and telling him, hey, like I'm done playing football. That's an emotional, probably the hardest conversation I've ever had to, or call I've ever had to make. And yeah, definitely tough there. But that post-football life is something I'm still figuring out right now. 2 years removed. It's about 2 years almost exactly to the day since I've moved on from football.
Well, 2 years and you're already doing some really neat things, and I can just see that growing. What was your dad's reaction to when you mentioned the phone call? How did he sort of help console you when you told him, look, I think my playing career is probably done?
Yeah, rightfully so. And I'll forever love him for this. He pushed back. I mean, he was like, oh, you sure? Like, you can't give it one more try or give it some time kind of thing. And I'll forever thank him for that. I remember Pat Narduzzi was in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and there was a quote about my dad. And he kind of said, this was earlier on, and he was kind of like, oh, Max does not have a quarterback dad. And for those around the industry, I think you can kind of piece together what that means, but I don't have a helicopter dad. I didn't have, like, oftentimes when you see quarterbacks dads at camps, they're right behind filming every rep, and they're on the phones, and they're living vicariously through their recruited quarterback son kind of thing. And that was never my dad. My dad was always supportive, but he made it a point that, hey, this was my journey and my process. And so always had a healthy relationship in that regard. And so I think I've seen other quarterbacks that, hey, their parents get so emotionally involved that when things crash and burn, for lack of a better term, that relationships gets really rocky kind of thing. And that was never the case with me and my dad, and or my dad and I. And he was there to support me. I think he knew that this wasn't just a flash in the pan type decision. A lot of people look at, hey, I pursued professional football for 15 months kind of thing, I guess you could say. But in my mind, and I think in my dad's mind, this pursuit was something that had been going on, I mean, ever since I was kind of in 8th grade, and especially had been going on since I went to USC and entered college, which was like 6 years prior. And that 6-year stretch, the reality is it wasn't the most fun stretch. It was a lot of kind of picking myself back up and responding. So I almost viewed that period as kind of a 6-year stretch that I had been pursuing NFL football, not just kind of a flash in the pan year thing. And he was supportive. I think he knew that I had thought this through. I think he knew that I had kind of turned over every rock, so to speak. And he was there to kind of just support me in the next chapter, knowing I kind of gave football everything I had.
You mentioned picking yourself up and that it being up and down as far as your playing football career. How do you, though, looking at it from an optimistic perspective, could use the highs and lows to better mentor younger quarterbacks? Because you know what it's like to feel low. You know what it's like to feel high. And so you have a better evaluation of the mindset and the roller coaster emotions that come with it.
Without a doubt. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I know for me personally, when I lost the competition battle as a true freshman and was like, what's going on? I'm outworking this dude. I'm doing what I need to have success. I'm supposed to be 5-star Gatorade Player of the Year. Like, what's going on? I felt very alone in the aspect of, like, I didn't feel like anyone could relate to me. I felt like, and sure, I'm talking in extremes here, but I didn't feel like there was any other like resources to really lean on during that time. And I'm hopeful that my story can be that, or some form of that, for guys that have their variation of my story. And it doesn't necessarily have to be quarterbacking or college football recruiting, but it can be, hey, I was supposed to go to this school or supposed to go to this career because my parents wanted me to do it, and now I hate it and want to go elsewhere with my life, kind of thing. And that big swing or that big transition and helping that or handling that mentally, I feel like there's very limited resources in that mindset, because it's not fun to talk about. Like, I'm not naive to the fact that, I mean, these are very kind of brutal subjects to talk about at times. So, I mean, the story of Tom Brady rising through the ashes, or Baker Mayfield, the walk-on transfer, kind of finding his way, or whatever, Josh Allen getting passed up on by other schools. Why? Because they were offering guys like me and they weren't offering guys like him. His story's more fun to talk about. Mine's maybe not as fun to talk about, but it's still very, very more common than I think people would think. And so I'm hopeful that, like you said, my experiences and the lens that I lived sports through and kind of life through can be relatable to a lot of people that, I mean, we all have our own stuff we're dealing with and expectations, and kind of dealing with a life detour, I guess you could say, is something that hopefully kind of people can lean on my experiences with.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate your transparency, and people are going to learn just as much from you as they are from the story, I believe, of Baker Mayfield, because of the uniqueness of your story. Final question for you, and Max Browne is with us. This has been really fun, Max. Really, really enjoy your perspective and your time. Getting the opportunity to be on the USC radio, network, and doing that, how is that? I don't want to say that sort of redeemed yourself, but how do you look at that as maybe helping what was an unfinished story, maybe not a bow tie, but help put a little bit of closure, because you are able to come back and contribute in a different way, but you are a natural when it comes to analysis and broadcasting. So it seemed like a seamless fit for you.
Yeah, I think it was great on many levels. And I think your sentiment is spot on. I mean, the reality is, when I left USC, I remember I kind of donated my USC gear, and I didn't think I was ever coming back, I guess you could say. And I really was honestly not bitter of things. I was frustrated and kind of had a chip on my shoulder a little bit, but I didn't look at it as kind of I had like bad blood or anything. I just feel like I just read it as like, hey, my chapter at USC just didn't work out, and that's my story, and we'll move forward with the next thing. And I say that because when I got the call about 2 years later after I transferred that, hey, there's a position on the radio, they'd love to have me come back, and it was by way of people seeing my YouTube videos. Kind of it got my heart going a little bit, like the idea of going back and facing kind of my old head coach and some of that, some of those stories that where things didn't work out. I mean, it got my heart going a little bit, but I think I'm in hindsight just so glad and grateful that it brought me back to USC. I mean, I live in LA, so to get back into that ecosystem and kind of, I don't want to say like put a Band-Aid on it, but like you said, have it be some way kind of therapeutic or have some closure, to kind of come back to the school. It's been awesome. And I got a USC jacket, USC polo in my closet right there. And if you told me that 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said, yeah, that's probably never happening. And so it's awesome to kind of just come back, be in the school. I think time heals a lot of things, if not kind of everything. And that certainly is something there. And as I get older, I can really look back and appreciate the friendships I have. I mean, some of my best friends to this day are a result of USC football and the memories that are there, even if it didn't go exactly the way I planned. I think coming back and doing radio, it's been great for the broadcasting front and learning the craft there and developing the craft. But I think mentally and with relationships and kind of circling back with a lot of people that mean a lot to me has been awesome.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, Max. And that's such a unique way of, you start something and you kind of come right back to it. And the passion for that university is there, and the talent, obviously, as a broadcaster, is there as well. Max Browne on Twitter, Max Browne for YouTube. Download, subscribe, all of his videos. They are well worth your time. I'm Bryan Fenley. Max, this has been so much fun. Really enjoyed it, and I hope when we can get to some normalcy here, it'd be great to catch you at a game sometime and meet you in person.
Hey, likewise, it would be awesome. And no, this was a blast. Thanks for having me on.